The main difficulties of working with any vulnerable or fragile work of cultural heritage is the respect you have to have for that object. Technology is at a point right now where we can record the surface of an object down to fractions of a millimeter. And it's through this kind of understanding that allows you to communicate across time and across cultures. The task of heritage protection and preservation is a real challenge. The mission of Factum Foundation is to record cultural heritage. So in the event that there's a disaster or an accident, we have the data to know what was there exactly as it is. We're pioneering a number of methods to return that information into the physical world. We're doing CNC milling, we're doing 3D printing, but we're trying to go beyond that. A facsimile of the Borgharini Chapel, the facsimile of the tomb of Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings, an exact facsimile of Veronese's wedding at Cana. The biggest project that's going on at the moment is an exact facsimile of the tomb of Seti I, which will be given to the people of Egypt as soon as it's finished. 200 years ago, the concern was not one of preservation. The concern was one of Indiana Jones and discovery and excitement and cultural acquisitions. The tombs in the Valley of the Kings lasted successfully for 3,500 years. But since they've been visited, they start to decline and decay rapidly. I think the facsimile is opening up a whole new level of possibility for display, preservation, conservation, restoration, communication, dissemination of what's important about these objects. If only we can preserve it like it is and document it and hand it on to future generations, then there's hope.
As long as prostheses have been around, people have been really focusing on making it look like a hand and move like a hand. But a hand is not just a grabber. A hand is a touch. It's touch that engages you with the world. It's touch that engages you with people. A prosthesis without touch is a tool. By giving touch, we're giving back a hand.
I worked in a factory setting before I lost my arm. I was doing some cleaning out from underneath a shredder type machine and grabbed material that was in my hand and pulled my hand into the machine. I didn't think that I'd ever have the sensation of touch or anything back again. And then my prosthetist told me about the research program up here in Cleveland. They hope to be able to give me the sense of touch.
The research that we've been doing is reconnecting the man to the machine. Basically learning how to take what the prosthesis feels and translate so that the person using it feels it. For the brain to feel touch as being their actual hand, it's really important that we activate or stimulate the wires that the brain always used to get from the hand. What we do is we implant cuff electrodes and then we apply really tiny amounts of current that activate those wires, and that information then goes to the brain. So we've been learning how to place this information on that nerve so the brain thinks it's his hand. They can feel not just buzzing, but also a touch, a pressure, like somebody putting a finger on their hand. And in fact, we've been able to see that intensity of the artificial stimulation mimics the intact hand.
Soft, big block. The first time they put sensation on and everything, it was just incredible. It was like, wow, could actually feel an area in my hand, a certain area, tingling and vibrations and stuff. Small, soft block. I said, just an incredible feeling. Bringing the prosthetic home with the sensory hand on it and being able to feel and everything's changed life considerably. It's just little things that people take for granted. Brushing teeth, to be able to hold the toothpaste and be able to squeeze and tell how hard I'm squeezing it so I don't squeeze it and go every place. It makes it a lot easier.
We're at the point where subjects can use their prostheses at home. They can have sensation while they're at home. It makes them two-handed again. It brings back their hand, it makes them whole.
Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Yes, I know. That's a good hug. Okay, want to do some training? I work with dogs to train them to go into an MRI scanner and try to figure out what makes them tick and what they're thinking. My name is Gregory Burns. I'm a neuroscientist at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. I've grown up with dogs and I've lived with dogs pretty much my whole life. One of my favorite dogs had passed away. In the back of my mind, I started wondering, did that dog love me in the way that I loved him? And that was really the beginning of it. All of these basic things that we've begun to sort out in humans, at least in human brains, we want to do in dogs. If dogs can be trained to go into an MRI machine, then maybe we could figure out what they're actually thinking. So we have a dog in the scanner, that's Katie, and she is a veteran of the project. This is probably about the 15th time she's done this. Just having the idea of, okay, well, let's train dogs to go on the scanner, it wasn't immediately apparent how you would go about doing that. And MRI scanners are not the most pleasant environments. Okay, hey, Callie, Coil, good girl. Callie is the little black terrier who was the first dog to train for the dog project. High five. I built a simulator of an MRI. So this is the simulator that I built here in my basement. Then we started adding in recordings of the scanner noise, which is actually quite loud. We just started working with, treats and positive reinforcement to see if we could get her to go into this thing. That actually proved to be pretty easy. And then so what we did was we kind of put out word of mouth. Do you want to join this project? Do you want to train your dogs for an MRI and maybe figure out what they're thinking? The purpose of this is to go through a number of exercises, including basic obedience, as well as how they react to the obstacles. When we hold the tryouts, it lets us weed out the dogs that we don't think would enjoy doing this. One of the benefits then of having more participants is it gives you statistical power. You can start to average dogs' brains together and get a better sense for what's happening. I started wondering very seriously if we could really finally answer this question. Do dogs essentially like us just for the social bond and not about the food? Good boy. And what we found was looking at the reward system that almost all the dogs had equal responses both to food as well as praise. And even a few dogs like the praise more. The things that we were finding about the dog's brain in many ways confirm, I think, what people know in their hearts about how dogs behave and why they behave. And the way I think about dogs is in many ways they're the ambassadors to the animal world. They're not that different from many of the other mammals out there, and so I suspect that a lot of what we find in dogs probably holds true for pretty much any mammal.
I was the snowflake consultant on the movie Frozen. They wanted to get all the snowflakes right, and so they asked me, how they grow. And I was very pleased. When the movie came out, they all looked like real snowflakes. None of them were 8-sided, they were all 6-sided, and so good job. So, my name is Ken Liebrecht, and I'm a professor of physics here at Caltech, and I also grow snowflakes. Well, I got into physics very early. I've been doing that most of my life. Maybe about 20 years ago, I just got interested in how crystals grow, and that sort of led me to ice and to snowflakes. We still don't exactly understand why they look like they do, so it's kind of fun to think about. To make a snowflake in the lab, you start with water and water vapor, and you got to get everything cold and basically start a crystal growing, and I'll kind of blow moist air down onto it, and it just absorbs water vapor from the air and starts to grow. And I can do this on a piece of glass, and so just watch it grow. I'm the only one that makes snowflakes like this in the lab. When you start to look really carefully at how a snowflake works, you find you don't understand it, and there's a lot going on. You dig deeper, there's more and more stuff, and it's really very interesting to me anyway. I love to go out and sort of hunt for snowflakes, because these beautiful works of art are just falling all over, and you pick a few of them up and photograph them, and the rest of them you just trample on. At the end of the day, I'm trying to understand how atoms and molecules fit together to form crystals, and by studying snowflakes, slowly you figure things out that are useful. One snowflake at a time.